Welcome back to episode number 21 of the Recovery Tapes. My name's Gary and I'm your host. And today we have a special guest episode with another recovery podcaster. So can you please introduce yourself to everyone, mate?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. My name's James. I have a podcast called Slaying Sober, and I was really lucky to interview Gary a little bit earlier on this season, and love connecting with you, brother.
Yeah, you too, man. I'm really keen to hear your story. This is something that I think has been great for both me and you, being sort of new podcasters in the same scene. I feel like it's good that we've backed off each other and sort of given each other tips and stuff as well. So I've really just enjoyed just talking to you on social media in general.
Yeah, thanks. And look, there's so much space for all of us, in every story that we tell. If people can take some hope from it along the way. And it helps me as well, and I hope it helped you in your recovery. So I love having these chats, mate. It's bloody good fun.
Yeah, no worries. So how long have you been clean for now?
2 years, 2 weeks, and 2 days, I reckon it is today.
Yeah, nice, man. It's one of those things where you sort of get to these points and it just starts to roll in, doesn't it? And before you know it, you sort of going, shit, it's been 2 years and 6 months, and then before you know it, you'll be saying 3, and then before you know it, bang, at 5. Like for me, I'm coming up on my 9th year this year, man.
Amazing. And it's recovery as well.
Mm-hmm.
At one point I thought I was going to be recovered, get the certificate
Yeah,
and off I go.
yeah.
But it's recovery and we work on it all the time. My recovery changes all the time as well.
Yep.
And if we just keep doing it day by day for the rest of our lives, we'll have a really fulfilled life, right?
Yeah, man, 100%. I feel like the hard work needs to continue to keep the appreciation for the lives that we do live now and what we actually have worked hard to get.
Oh, I've got too much to lose, mate. I've got too
Yeah.
much to lose and
Yep.
I'm enjoying it too much,
Fuck yeah, that's a great answer, man. So what was life like growing up for you as a kid, James? What were you like as a kid, man?
I love this question. I've been thinking about it more and more. I think everything starts at the start and we're products of our parents, right? And
Yep.
my parents both grew up in England in a place called Bristol. They lived in council estates over there, and in the 70s, England wasn't a good place to be. So they yeeted out of there. They were 10-pound Brits on a boat. They had a fucking suitcase, and that was it, man. And they came over to Australia, the land of opportunity, right? And I think that's what they were trying to give to me and my sister, is they'll take an opportunity themselves and then give us an opportunity that they didn't have in life. And they bloody did a great job at it, They did.
Man.
I was really lucky growing up, I was really lucky, and I am aware that not everyone was given the same opportunity as me.
Yep.
I dug into sports lots. I did a little athletics. I played under 12s footy for Victoria, and I think it became part of my identity. Sport. I was James the sportsman. I was pretty good at it, and I got cut down a little bit, like a bit of that tall poppy syndrome from people around me, and like bullied a little bit, I suppose, at certain times. But that changed. It was part of my identity, but it changed a bit when I sort of hit puberty, met a girlfriend,
Yeah, man.
and started drinking. All at the same time.
Okay.
And that's when life sort of seemed to change for me a bit at about 14.
Yeah, rightio. So were there like any sort of expectations or pressures put on you that sort of changed the way that you thought you had to be as a young fella?
I think internally, definitely. Internally, it was an identity struggle. I played in all these sporting teams. I was thinking about it the other day, and we just never lost. Like, I was really lucky. Like, just losing wasn't part of.
Yeah, wow.
what was around. And some might say that that's lucky, but I actually think it was pretty shit because when I did lose or when I didn't get my own way, I didn't really know how to handle that, you know. Um, and I did put a lot of pressure on myself. And retrospectively, I think that feeling of not being enough is something that I've been grappling with my whole life. Um, I was fortunate enough because of my parents' hard work, but also a bit of footballing ability. I got a scholarship at the
Yeah.
grammar school. Um, so for context there, like I grew up in a place called Frankston,
Yep.
low socioeconomic area, like, you know, a lot of unemployment. There were drug problems there, you know, this sort of stuff as well. My parents were doing the best in that area. And then I went up the tracks to this private grammar school, and our headmaster used to wear this tweed suit and quote poetry and stuff.
Yeah,
And
man.
it
Yep.
was like if I didn't have my socks up at the station, I was fucking getting yelled at, you know. And it was that discipline back then of that old British grammar school sort of thing where there wasn't a lot of love and kindness and empathy. It was like it's this way or the highway, you know. And our careers counselor at school was like, so you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a business manager, accountant, you know. That's how I felt it was. It probably wasn't in retrospect, but trades weren't an option. One thing that my careers counselor said to me was, James, you will not get through life on charm alone. And so I became a salesperson. So that's sort of what I do for a living in the end. But
uh,
no, but to answer your question, man, like I
mm,
didn't feel pressure from others. I felt immense pressure that I put on myself.
yeah, I can relate to that. I can relate to that 100% as a teenager, man. Just the world that I was trying to fit in and the person that I was sort of trying to become have a very
Yeah.
similar story to that too. My parents are from England, and all I ever saw when me and my brother were kids was like just work, 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 work. You know what I mean? I remember when they got
Yeah.
their house and we moved out of our rental into the family home, and I just
Mm-hmm.
saw my dad just literally put his head down, and he just did not stop for like 15 years, man. Just work, work. So that gave me and my brother that motivation and push to sort of, we just thought that was normal, you know, and it sounds like it's very similar for you too.
Yeah. And perhaps to our detriment at times, you know, like
Yep.
that has given me a great amount sense of work ethic and a
Yep.
sense of there's no entitlement. You got to make it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also, like retrospectively, maybe there were other things that I didn't have that I needed. You know, they were
Yeah.
doing the best they could with what was in front of them, but I didn't have grandparents around me. I didn't have a large sense of community. I was
Mm-hmm.
in after school care for long, long hours because my parents were working their ass off. And there's no right way of parenting, right? You know, and
Mm-mm.
we know that now as parents.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
We, with parenting, I think our parents wanted to do better than their parents, and we want to do better than our parents. And our kids will want to do the same thing as well. And you know, there's no right or wrong answers.
No, there's not. Like my thing for me was my my dad and that, they were really good with me, man, all the time. But because of the long work hours, I was in after school care a lot as a teenager, and my brother is 9 years older than me, so he was at the stage where he was doing his apprenticeship and stuff when I was sort of in like year five or year six. So I would just
Mm.
walk home from school and just sit down and turn on the TV and just wait for someone to get home. But when I got into year seven, year eight, and year nine, where I was sort of a teenager myself, I really found that I was hanging around later after school. You know, I'd hang around the bus stops or meet with all the boys on the oval after school, and that translated into something different as well, man. So yeah, it's interesting how you say that because it makes me have memories of certain times. Now I'm a parent where I realize like shit, I wouldn't want my daughter hanging around like I did, but I know that my dad and mum didn't do it on purpose. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and also like they need to. we need to work it out ourselves. Like you want to. There's also this sense with your children where you need to let them go.
Yeah.
They've got to
Yep.
work it out themselves. Right, wrong, or indifferent. They got to have a crack themselves.
Yeah, man. So you mentioned to me before you had a love for music in your teenage years and in your now life as well. So just before we get into some of the more serious stuff, can you tell us a bit about your love and your passion for music and being a bit of a rebel in your younger days?
I love that you ask this because in your story it was Tupac and Biggie and gangster rap.
Yeah, man. Yep.
Mine was more of a sort of a punk fascination, punk and rock and
Yeah,
that whole
righto.
scene. And when I was going through all that stuff, I heard this song by Pennywise, Fuck Authority. And it fucking was like my
Yeah, man.
motto, like I just felt like, oh, I feel heard and I feel seen, and I just really related to that, like in a lot of ways. And I really wanted to stick it to the man. I wanted to conform with the anti-conformists, and that's where I found a sense of community of similar-minded people.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I guess the reality is I was escaping from something and looking for connection. That's what I was doing in music. But I used to have the chains with the wallet on, and the braces
Yeah,
down, and
yeah.
used to dye my hair all sorts of different colors, and um, it pissed my parents off. Like, it pissed my dad off a lot. I got
Mm.
no doubt about that. And that made me want to do it more. I just wanted to butt heads, and I wanted conflict, and I don't know. Like, I feel like it was a big phase, but it was a part of my growing up and part of me identifying as well.
I think it's really important that you speak freely about that before we get into some of the other questions as well, because I know that there's a certain age group of my listeners that are sort of covering from where I am, about 30, early 30s into sort of like 40, 45, because you see it on the
Yeah.
analactics, man. And I know that there's going to be so many blokes that are listening to this that are just going to be going, fuck yeah, I remember that time, brother. Oh, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely, man, absolutely. And like there were proper punks that I hung around with. Like, we
Yeah,
used to
man.
hang around places like Collingwood and Fitzroy, and like the housing
Mm-hmm.
commissions there. And I'm talking like smack houses and fucking
Yeah,
like proper
fucking oath.
poverty, and like they were like doing it like the punks of the UK or America, like mohawks and chains and
Yep.
struggling by it, and I probably think it was a big heroin era for them as well. And I was just a few years younger than them, from a
Yep.
completely different side of the tracks, trying to keep up with them as well.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, you mentioned before about sort of when you were 14, sort of that sort of early started drinking and stuff. But would you say it was like I'm 18 now, I can go out and go clubbing when you've really started picking up the drinking, or was it something that did happen a bit earlier?
No, it was before that,
Yeah.
100%. It
Hmm.
was in my teens, and it was I was about 14 or 15, and I got a football injury. I had to have a year off football. I reckon I was hitting puberty. Um, like my testosterone was going. I was meeting girls, and we were going to parties. Like, that was our social thing. We used to go to parties on a Friday night from our school and the other local schools, and
Hmm.
um, and we used to get a 4-pack of those Woodstock bourbons, those 440
Yeah, man.
cans, and like 4 of those would last the night for some people. They would last me the first hour, and then I would start stealing, thieving, manipulating, lying to get others, steal others, drink more until
Yep.
I was blackout drunk. Like, it was every Friday, every Saturday, I was blackout drunk, more or less. And I'd wake up at a friend's house, on their couch in their spare room or whatever, and I'd shake it off and I'd get on with my day. And there were very little consequences for my behaviour. I'd still
Yep.
feel a little bit of shame and a little bit of guilt, but like, it was, I guess everyone just thought it was a phase. No one tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, we're not all blackout drinking. You're drinking abnormally to what we are. You know, we will drink our 4 Woodstocks, pick up a couple of girls or a girl or whatever, and, you know, listen to some music and go home. Whereas I would always be taking it to that extra level.
Yeah, I think Australian culture allows that friend in every group as well without anybody actually asking that guy if he's okay. When, like, back in those days, man, like, I remember I wasn't that guy in my friend group, but I do remember the guy that was that person in our group. And, you know, eventually he did end up having some pretty serious problems later in his earlier adult life, just with sort of being able to show up and stuff without having to drink to be in certain places or situations. And yeah, man, it's hard in our culture in Australia because we don't identify that enough, do we?
No, and as life went on, and I'm sure we'll get to that, you become able to manipulate situations, particularly with drinking, right? Like, drugs are part of my story as well, but drinking was the one that really got me. But I was able to manipulate things like, oh, it's Father's Day. Let's go out for late breakfast. Oh, it's a licensed place. Let's get a bottle of champagne or what, you know, like all of that sort of stuff to be able to make sure that I was able to get on.
Yeah, righto. So when did you pick up the harder stuff, man? When did that sort of sneak in?
I started smoking marijuana at sort of 18, 19. When I left home, I was hanging around an older crew, and that became daily smoking. And then I moved to England when I was in my early 20s. 19. I moved to England and lived and worked in a pub, which, you know, talking about manipulating situations to be able to drink all the time. But I took ecstasy here and there, like around that time. But really, like towards my mid-20s, I was living in London, and we were buying pingers for £3 a pinger, which was the same price as a pint was.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. So to be a pint and a pinger would be the same price. And we would work out that, you know, we'd go out on a Thursday night, and if you wanted to keep going hard, if you were chemically induced, you could keep going all the way through to Sunday night, Monday morning. And then somehow, because we were still in our mid-20s, we'd drag ourselves to work. But that's when I dabbled in some of the pharmaceuticals and got the nickname Disco because I used to really enjoy myself over there. And that was, you know, and then it sort of got to my late 20s and I'd burnt myself out. Like I was starting to get unwell from
man.
the partying. And, but like, again, like I had no parents, I had no responsibilities, no family, no partner. It was just over there partying all the time, getting to work, getting the paycheck and getting on, living for the weekend, really.
I think, yeah, you wouldn't be guilty of being the only bloke that did that, man. Do you know what I mean? Like that is how the world used to be for a lot of guys, just in general across the world as well. So it's really interesting to hear that you say that you sort of, you know, doesn't really matter where in the world you was, you know, being really honest there and saying like, yeah, no, that was at home or in England or wherever I was, it was me that was making it to that next level.
Yeah, and like some people would say, you know, at times my parents and stuff would say, oh, you're hanging around with the wrong people. But that's bullshit. I was finding those people. You know, I was going out of the way to make sure that I was meeting those people, connecting with those people and partying with those people.
Yep.
And like, it was fun, man, for a while. It was really like I had some very, very good times. But I also put myself in some really dangerous positions, you know, overseas, with gear on me, traveling, you know, all these sorts of things were really, really dangerous. And how I didn't get in more trouble than what I did, there's obviously something watching over me.
Yeah, man. I interviewed a guy from Canada, right? And just off what you're saying, he reckons there's this saying from a philosopher called Carl Jung, right? And he reckons that people with addiction, they go through these struggles and these situations in a way that's not normal. So like your normal person would get caught on holiday and have that wake up realization and fucking go like, oh shit, got to pull my socks up, and then they just change completely. But for people like me and you, man, it doesn't happen like that, bro. Do you know what I mean? Like we get through these situations without any consequences, and we're left there going, might be able to do that twice as more next time, eh? Like, and it's strange how it equivalates.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Carl Jung, without sounding too um, educated,
Yeah, yeah.
he's the dude that started AA. Like
Oh, really?
with the founders of AA, he was the psychology behind it all. So I reckon he knows a thing or two, Big Carl.
Yeah,
But yeah, we certainly the consequences just weren't there. The consequences were that I felt shit and I
yep,
had no money. But I
yeah, yeah,
didn't have
yep.
enough to lose then to really justify change in my life. So I just kept doing what I was doing.
Yeah, righto, man. So, like, how long you mentioned that went on in like late into your 20s and stuff. So, how long did that actually go on for before you really started seeing some pretty serious problems come in where you were having these moments going, fuck, all right, if I keep going down this road, I'm going to start losing things.
It was when I started getting things. So I left England in my late 20s. I came back to Australia. The long and short of it is I started a business. I was successful, make whatever you want of that. And I started going through that natural progression of meet a girl, get engaged, get married, have a kid, buy a house, that sort of ladder of like, I was just ticking stuff off in life,
Mm-hmm.
and life was like, from the outside, it looked peachy. Like my behaviors weren't great. I was drinking lots. I really sort of put the drugs down, I suppose, or like
Yeah,
occasionally I'd go out, and I thought it was sustainable, and when we had our first child, I probably thought that would just naturally I'd grow up, like many people do. Like
yeah, yeah,
I thought that I'd hit 30, have a kid, and it'd be a white picket fence, and I'd be mowing the lawns at the weekend, but that wasn't necessarily the case, and I found, like, to take it back to that not being enough thing that we were talking about earlier, that's
mm-hmm.
when this really started to creep in, because I was making really good money. I had a good house. I had a beautiful wife, have a beautiful wife.
Yep,
And I had my first child, and with my second was on my way, and I bought, a really nice house, and I thought life was amazing. But deep down, I didn't feel like I was able to be a good enough dad because I was working too hard. I didn't feel like I was good enough at work and in business because I sort of had family commitments.
yep.
And I eventually didn't feel like a very good husband at all. And I thought I was doing all this stuff providing for my family, but it wasn't enough for them. Now, the truth is, I didn't ask them whether it wasn't enough. It was my pressure on myself. And I got this warped sense of reality where I just thought, the more I shower my family with gifts, I'll take my wife to New York for her 40th birthday, I'll buy a newer car, we'll have a big party. I thought that would mean that I'm enough. And it wasn't, like I just wasn't enough in myself, and I wasn't happy. And I thought that there was something missing from my life, Gary. I thought, what is this thing that's missing from my life? And it now is embarrassingly clear that it was sobriety. it was like the problem was in my hand, and it did become really problematic.
That was, man, that almost got me speechless and lost for words. Thank you so much for that, with the honesty in that story, the way that flowed off your tongue off the back of my question. That's beautiful that you're at a point where you can say what you just said so freely, man. Honestly.
Thank you. It's taken a lot of work. It
Yeah.
has taken, like, I'm over 40
Mm.
and I'm only just starting to work it out and I know nothing, I'm still
Yeah.
working it out, but I'm starting to have the emotional intelligence with a
Mm.
couple of years sober as well and doing the work. I start to look, I can see some reasoning behind. And it
Yeah.
wasn't a big trauma. For me, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a big trauma. It was just inside my head and inside my body.
I can really relate to your story and the way that you speak about it too. It's one of the reasons why I've been so excited to get you on and actually hear your story. And for my listeners as well, I've been really keen for them to hear that, because people who don't really understand addiction too much, I suppose, or the people that haven't had anything in their life immediately where they have a family member go through an addiction or someone has something happen to them, people can really have that prefix in their head where they think, oh, these people they've been through something. That's why they're taking drugs, or that's why they're drinking. And it's just not like that sometimes, is it?
No, it's not always. I find, like, through these sorts of projects, talking to people that have
Yeah.
suffered addiction, there's patterns that come up,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of trauma there. But it
Yep.
doesn't necessarily have to be the case. And if you sit in the pub or the coffee shop or wherever it might be, in a circle of men in particular, and you ask them what their greatest challenge is, and I've done this, I've
Yeah.
sat
Yeah.
there in a group and I've said, what's your greatest challenge? And 9 out of 10 of them say, I don't feel enough.
Mm.
Because us as men are in this really weird spot where we're trying to be the best dad and be present. We're trying to be domestically equivalent and, like, provide for our families, clean, look after, be the best husband, make sure our wife's a queen, do half the cleaning and half the cooking. And also, but ingrained within us is to provide for our families.
Yeah.
We are the
Yep.
safe place for our families. And it's hard because you can't fucking do all of that stuff at 10 out of 10 all the time.
All you
Something's
can do
got
is
to
your
slip.
best. Mm.
Yeah, something's got to slip. And it doesn't matter whether I can tell you this, it doesn't matter whether you're struggling to make pennies meet, or you're
Mm-hmm.
making $1 million a year, or you live in a mansion, or you live in a unit. If you've got a family, if you don't have a family, it's all the same for me. Not feeling enough and wanting to be more, or
Yep.
wanting for something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say as well, like, that's that whole thing of looking out for your mates or looking out for other
Yeah. Yeah.
guys as well.
Yep.
Like, if you're in a sense of community, chat with your mates. Ask them, like, that whole thing of, are you okay, is a really good question. But maybe ask them, what's your greatest challenge at the moment?
Yeah, put a bit more on the back of that simple question, because some people brush it off when they hear that, are you okay? That in their defense mechanisms come up when they hear little sayings like that. I know some people, if you ask them if they're all right, they're just like a fucking brick wall, man. Can't get through to them at
Oh,
all. But I
yeah.
probably, now that you've said that, I'm going to approach someone that I know at work in a different way. And instead of asking them if they're all right, I'm just going to be, yeah, great. That's really good advice. Oh,
Yeah. Well, it's like if someone asks you, how are you, Gary? And you say,
yeah.
oh, I'm good. And then you carry on. Or you say, oh, I'm really tired. Oh, well,
Mm-hmm.
mate, like, good on. And then the conversation goes on. But if I was to say to you, oh, Gary, why are you tired? What's your greatest challenge at the moment? And you go, oh, I've got fucking 2 babies at home,
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, well, like, look after yourself, make sure you get some rest when you can, go for a walk,
Yep.
like, get out in nature, give your wife a cuddle if you got young kids, because you need that connection. You're a team together. And if
Yep.
you ever need to talk about it, reach out, because I've been through that. or I know someone who has.
Yeah, fucking oath, man. People need to hear that, eh? People do need to hear that. So what was the big moment or the situation, if you don't mind sharing with us, that made you go, that's fucking it. I'm going to change for the good.
It's happened a couple of times that I would call it a surrender that it's occurred.
Mm-hmm.
When I was at my worst, I was just so unhappy. I'd lost hope. I'd lost hope in my life. I'd lost my zest for life. And there were times when I didn't want to live and I didn't want to be around, despite having all this beautiful stuff around me. And I felt like I couldn't share that with anyone because I felt like I was really lucky in some ways. And I remember, like, essentially, it got to the point where it was unsafe for me to be at home, and it wasn't a good place for me to be around my children acting the way that I behaved. And,
Okay.
and my wife and I spoke about this, and she said, if you want to keep behaving like you are, you're going to have to leave. And really embarrassingly, I packed my bags and I left because that I thought it would take away the shame and the regret, and that I would have some freedom, and I thought maybe that would make me happy. So I checked into an Airbnb across the road from one of my favourite pubs, and and I went there and I sat there on the Saturday afternoon by myself and drank and I gambled and I thought for about 5 minutes. I thought, fucking, this is it. I got nothing to worry about, right?
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is
Mm-hmm.
this is me. I can do whatever I want. And I won a shitload of money on the horses. And I sat there in this bar, and after I'd had 4 or 5 drinks, I had I think $6,000 in cash in front of me,
Shit. Yeah, yeah.
and I looked down at it, and I just burst out into tears and was like, "I've fucking got nothing. I've got
Fuck, man.
nothing." And I just felt nothing at all, like I'd won this money and I'm looking at it. Usually, you'd fist pump and high five and fucking carry on. And I was just like, what am I going to do with this? I'm looking at life the wrong way. Eventually, like a couple of days later, my dad and my wife came into that same pub and pulled me out of there, and because I wasn't answering calls, I was avoiding
Yeah,
all of
yeah.
that.
Yep.
And I think that they'd realised, like a mini intervention between themselves, like, I'm more danger out there in the world to myself than I
Yeah.
am without. And what I needed was love and empathy and compassion. And I'm blessed because I've got no doubt, Gary, that I wouldn't be here if they didn't do
Yeah.
that. It just wouldn't. I would have kept going, and it would have got harder and more difficult and more hectic, and I would have either killed myself intentionally or unintentionally. I've got no doubt.
Wow, man. That's take my hat off to you as well for the whole situation of just, the whole bursting out in tears with the money and everything, admitting that on a podcast for other blokes to hear. This is really the reason I got you on, man. That's God's work. You're saying that, and it's also God's work that you have a beautiful family and your dad and that come to save you as well. So just give a shout out to family and
Mate,
yeah,
I wouldn't be here without them at
yeah,
all.
man. Yep.
They've done so much. They're the true heroes in many ways, in our addiction.
Yep.
To help us get well. And I must also add, that wasn't the end.
Okay.
That was a wake up call.
Yep.
It took me another 3 months of trying to lie, manipulate, cheat and be dishonest
Uh-huh.
to not go to rehab. You know, the sort of rule was you can come back home, we'll look after you, but you got to get to rehab, you know, and we'll help you do it. And they did. You know, they came up with the names and the numbers and all the calls. And I called everyone, but I'd manipulate myself through, oh, no, I'm not that bad. I'm not that bad.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, um, until I did go to rehab. And there was incidents between here and there as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Yep.
But I surrendered to go to rehab to get well. And that's when I stood in a room and I realized I wasn't alone, you know. And I know for me, this rehab facility gave me two things. It gave me the ability to know that I wasn't alone, and
Yep.
it gave me the space physically and mentally to work on myself, you know. And
Nice.
I know we've spoken about the varying levels of success that rehabs have, but for
Yeah, yeah.
me, it was really important that I was able to, and I went into work and I said to my
Mm.
business partner, I'm going to rehab. This is proper serious and
Yep.
I've got to address it. And I was able to say that to my family. And I also sent it to my friends. And I sent about 20 of my mates a text message 2 nights before I went to rehab. I was pretty deep into the booze and the bag at the time that I did, but I
Mm-hmm.
sent them a message. I said, hey, fellas, I've got a problem and I need help for it.
Yep.
And I'm going to address this on Monday. And I did, you know, and that gave me the space to get well.
It's I learned from you, and I don't say what I said anymore when I went on your podcast, because after listening to myself say it when I listened to our episode, and then also as well other people that have been to rehab, you know, I had a bit of a closed-minded vision on it where I was sort of blinded by the percentages, I suppose you could call it. And I'd just like to use this opportunity to say that since I've become a recovery podcaster, I have come across multiple people who have had successes from rehab. And I've learned and grown from that, you know, just because I didn't go down that track myself. I had, yeah, sort of a different way of looking at it. And just what you said then as well, I think it's a service in our community that needs to be there. And it's also great that you speak like that, because there could be somebody listening right now that could be like, fuck, man, I need to make that Monday call. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And conversely, I've learnt from you as well, Gary. And
Yep.
we need hope and we need a higher power, right?
Yeah, nice.
And your higher power was, well, I don't know, I can't speak on
Mm.
your behalf, but I suggest that it was your beautiful wife being pregnant to have a baby. That's a higher power. It gives you
Yeah, man.
something outside of yourself to make a change. And you also moved geographically. So you got away to a different place. So it's the same thing. You know, I happened to go to a church where
Yeah, yeah.
we went to meetings. Your higher power was moving to a different place
Yeah, yeah.
and
Yep.
having a child on the way, you know, is my interpretation of it.
Yeah, that's
It's the
exactly what
same.
it was. Yeah.
It's about the similarities in our story, not the differences. And you
Yeah,
know,
nice.
for us, it was different substance in different sides of the country, but it's the same shit. It's a fucking
It is, eh?
addiction
Yeah,
that
man.
we're trying to get well from. And when we speak about our stories, they're very, very similar, man.
They are, eh?
Migrant parents, puberty, music, identity, addiction, recovery podcast now.
Yeah, man.
You know, feel connected to you across the other side of the country, brother.
It's good, man. I feel it too. It's really good, man. So, what was actually the reason that you started a recovery podcast, man? Like, what was the incident or thought, or just, yeah, run us through it?
Oh, I love storytelling.
Yep.
And I love listening to podcasts as well. So I feel like they're always front of mind. And I also thought, I heard someone give a TED talk and they were talking about legacy. And one of the things that they said is so often in life that, and this guy told this beautiful story about his dad that passed away and he was terminally ill. And basically what happened is he got given a week to live and he pressed record play on the old tape deck and he started recording stuff to give to his son. And it was his son that was doing this TED talk. And the story is about, and I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, his name's Steve Corney. You can look up his TEDx talk about legacy. And I was there live in the audience. And it was this really, really moving piece of basically about recording stories. And we've got this fucking device in our hand, you know, that we walk around with that we can either record voice or photos or videos. And so often we do it, man, of us at a concert, you know, of some dude on stage or fucking taking selfies of ourselves because our makeup looks good or whatever it is, or we got a new haircut. But how often do we tell our true stories in an authentic way? And, you know, where we've come from and where we're at. And people in addiction sometimes struggle to tell their own story to their family and their friends, you know?
Yep.
Like I've interviewed some beautiful people that have thanked me afterwards because they've been able to forward their chat with me to their mum or their sister who's like, and there's been tears and, oh my God, I had no idea you went through that or felt that.
How powerful is that, eh?
Oh man, it is. Like it's so beautiful and it's so moving. I've never been more inspired by people in recovery. Like if you had told me the first time that I went to rehab or the rooms or whatever, and like looked around at all these bunch of fuck ups and misfits, because that's what we are, all of us, by the way, but me included. And thought that I would have taken spiritual guidance and learnings from these people.
Yep.
More than anyone, you know. I've never really been inspired to like look at celebrities and go, I want to be like that guy.
Nah.
Or I want to be like
this
guy.
Either,
it just doesn't, you know, maybe at one point, like I would have liked to have been Fat Mike from NoFX or fucking be Calvin Harris up there on the decks or whatever. But that's, you know, the reality is I haven't looked at too many people from a spiritual sit around the table and, you know, 5 guests to dinner and all that. But now I meet people, strangers, all the time that I listen to them share something for 4 or 5 minutes and go, wow, what a superstar person, what a brilliant story, or what a traumatic upbringing that they've had. And look at them here now, standing there, being a great
pillar,
mother, a great dad, and a pillar of the community, a useful fucking member of society.
Go from being a shit stain on the underwear of life to just like a fresh pair of jocks, man. You know what I mean?
Exactly right. There's nothing like a fresh pair of jocks.
No, man, and a fresh pair of socks, eh? I love a fresh pair of socks, I got to say.
100%. I love it. So good.
I heard that when I was homeless and I was messed up, man. I had a friend say to me, he's like, don't you want to put on a fresh pair of socks every day, Gary? And I was just sitting on a couch out the back of this house, man. I was trashed. I've been up for days. And I think I had the same clothes on for like 4 or 5 days, man. I was just a fucking mess, right? And that really, really, really sunk in and deep into my soul. And I thought, at the time, I just remember making a stupid joke to myself, going, I'm not good enough to have a fresh pair of socks every day, or just something dismissive, whatever it was. But now I do get up and theoretically much put on a fresh pair of socks every day in my sobriety and get on with my day, man. And I never thought that I would ever do that in the moment, but I'm here doing it, and the recovery thing is helping me grow and meeting people like you said and sharing any experiences with families and stuff, and having people message and say, I've really been able to look at addiction from a different angle after listening to your podcast or watching some of your shorts. Like, I've cried more times this year than I have at all, man, in a long time, mate.
When was the last time you cried, Gary?
I think it was a couple of months back, about six weeks or something back. I got a message from this lady that was basically just like, yeah, man, just praising me through the nines, saying that her daughter's just hit a year in recovery, and they're watching my stuff, and they're the same age around from the area where I live, and there was like not just one person, there was like this whole family of people that were like, yeah, man, we know that guy, like we've seen him around at the shops and shit like that, and they weren't like coming up to me and stuff and talking to me in physical, but they had sent me through a few messages to say like, hey, we really, really appreciate the fact that you're just there and you're not asking for anything, and we're gaining help and learning. And so for me, I just broke down, bro. Just started crying in my car, and I was just like, holy shit, like this is exactly why I'm doing this. Like, everybody wants money, obviously, man, but like, I'm not looking for that financial side of it. I'm not doing it for that at the moment. You know what I mean? I'm doing it to help people and to grow. And I feel that from you too.
It's an act of service, right? Like I've, like people might look at what we do from the outside and think, oh, like, what's the end game? Is there a monetizing? Is there an ego thing? And I felt in the connection with you that that's not the case. The matter of the fact is like, we're not making money from this. It's in fact costing us money. All this shit and the time and all the rest of it. Everything costs money, right? And time. But it's those tiny little ones that you get. And we don't, like, I can speak openly. Like, my podcast doesn't get tens of thousands of listeners. Like, the actual numbers are relatively low.
Yeah, same.
It's those messages that come across where it's someone, I've got a problem, or now I'm getting people, because I'm a little bit older than you, my kids are having problems, or whatever. And, trying to like, and I don't have the answers, man.
Yep.
But I have some empathy to maybe deal with them and tell them that it gets better. It just does.
Yeah, man.
Gets better. And the tears that I have now, listening to what you just said, and the reason I asked the question, is the last time that I cried was I heard my daughter sing. She was playing the piano and singing. I'm getting a bit choked up about it now. And I looked at her and I just went, that is the fucking most beautiful thing, man.
Fuck yeah.
And I would have never done that. 3 years ago, I would have walked past her room and gone, oh, that's cool, well done. And then I would have made some smart-ass quip about the money that I'm paying to send her to vocal and piano lessons and whatever. And now it's the most fucking beautiful thing, man.
Nice work, James. Nice work, man. We're gonna close the podcast up here. We're just we've had a really, really, really good chat here. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for your honesty. And just for everybody listening, what do we have to look forward to from Slaying Sober in 2026, man?
Yeah. I just want to keep it real, and I want to keep chatting with everyday people that tell beautiful stories. And I'm incredibly privileged and honoured to hold a space for them. And I just want to keep creating a safe place for people to talk about recovery openly, because the more people that talk about it, the more we take out that stigma, and the more people can change their lives. Because if you can do it and I can do it, anyone can, right? And it's fucking beautiful.
100%, man. Thank you so much for your time, James. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you've got coming next. And for everybody that's listening, thank you so much for listening. And we hope you drew some sort of strength from this chat and you can apply it into your own life, or like we said before, forward it or send it on to someone in your life that you think may be able to hear the positive side in this and get strength from it. So thank you for your time, guys, and have a beautiful day.
Ciao.